Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Meatspace and this is Literally Graphic. And today, as the title denotes, my Wednesday video is going to be talking a bit more about why I tried to read, quote, diversely. Is it just because I'm a basic bitch who rides the waves of trends? Maybe. I don't think so, but when it comes to self-evaluation, I feel like objectivity is impossible. But to start over on a much more positive note, why do I try and read more diverse? Mostly probably because it's fun. It also reduces the chances that I'll come across as a bigot and or idiot, which considering my struggle with social anxiety is pretty important to me. I also read more diversely because white mediocrity is a very real thing, and extrapolating to all other sorts of identity that makes a person part of the quote norm makes it that much easier for an author or artist to reach a mass audience without actually being any good. But moving back to the negative, isn't this just tokenizing people, reducing people to various aspects of their life? Doesn't it require some sense of oppression Olympics and or liberal nonsense? Yes and no. I guess my ideas about why reading diversely is important boils down to the idea that I think that everyone experiences life differently. And things like class, race, disability, religion, gender, and sexuality, while not being the be-all, end-all of these differences, are a way to talk about them, and are certainly focal points of difference. This is not to say that anyone who identifies as something, example black, disabled, or Muslim, ever gets to speak for all people who identify similarly, but for me it is one opinion to file away in a folder with all the opinions shared by others similarly identify. Reviewing these folders, trends can emerge that can be something more like safe-ish generalizations, but I would proceed with caution. I also have some core personal values that will rank some diverse creators a bit higher than others, such as being sex and queer positive and anti-capitalist. I'm a bit more interested in hearing from people significantly different from myself on points of diversity that might disagree with me on these core values, but I certainly don't plan on letting anyone convince me to oppress marginalized groups, no matter how diverse they are. And side note, equality only feels like oppression to people who have been previously or are currently privileged. I feel like my core value of identifying as an anarchist is at least one way that I really avoid the oppression Olympics that supposedly exists. I'm slightly doubtful anyone actually engages in this, but whatevs. It also probably helps that I have ADHD, so I really can't even pick favorite, insert anything here, if my life depended on it. So yeah, not good at ranking things, so not really part of the way I see the world, although I do feel like I have a nose for when people are trying to put themselves above others. Despite being someone who aspires to assist in the death of capitalism, one of the reasons that I focus on hashtag own voice diversity is because I feel like diverse people should get paid for talking about their experiences. Because the publishing industry exists in the modern, quote, Western world, it has a lot of white supremacy to work through, so there's a bit of a trend of people closer to white, able-bodied, cisgendered, Christian, heterosexuality getting the book deals, even if it is to, quote, give face to the faceless, or, quote, voice to the voiceless, which means oppressed people are being used to make money for their oppressor. This strikes me as rather repulsive. It also perpetuates a lot of misinformation and more easily palatable messages from/about marginalized people. See again my point about not wanting to look like a bigot and or idiot in social situations. I also want to keep awkward in Meatspace conversations to a minimum where I expect people to answer all of my rude/probing/bigoted questions when there's a lot more own voices materials published into the public domain every day than I could ever fully digest. Speaking of Meatspace, as you may or may not know, I live in a pretty big city full of lots of diverse people. Some of these I work with, and some are friends of mine, although not very many because of low self-esteem and introversion. But I've also spent a lot of time in heavily segregated American rural landscapes, which means I still know a lot of people who do not get exposed to many people outside of the white, quote, norm. Books, comics, movies, etc. are one way of me trying to share this exposure with family who are genuinely nice but still stuck in their white conclaves. But yeah, it probably mostly boils down to the introvert thing where I want to go to the fewest events and interact with the fewest people humanly possible. I like people, but it's nicer if they don't require me to respond in real time. I guess I should also note that this isn't something I'm really interested in debating with people about, but if anyone had a thought that was inspired by this self-reflection, feel free to leave that in the comments. Bye y'all, keep reading and resist white supremacy. And as always, Literally Graphic is recorded on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation. I live here because of British colonization, Indigenous genocide, and more geographically specific, Treaty 13, also known as the Toronto Purchase, which was finalized in 1805 between representatives of the Crown and certain Mississauga peoples. This treaty was a lie and has since been broken many times over. Saying so reflects only my own small steps towards knowing the truth and does nothing for reconciliation.